I have some exclusive gameplay for Mount & Blade II Bannerlord at Gamescom. And yes, this is the full release. Now, what you're seeing is the console version of the game. However, they did mention that both versions, PC and console, would be updated together, meaning the versions are exactly the same, and it was mentioned in this video that this version is the full release. So we don't even have access to what we're seeing right now. I wasn't actually at Gamescom. There's another YouTuber called Sexy Biscuit that covers a lot of Kingdom Come Deliverance stuff. Go and check out their channel because they were there and they were kind enough to film some stuff for me and ask some questions to the developers, which will pop in another full Q&A video. First of all, we can get our first look at the cursor. I was a little bit skeptical about how they were going to do it because, of course, using a mouse is so much easier for this kind of game, especially on the world map, but it seems to work kind of well, but I guess we're just going to have to see how effective this is with a hands-on. But let's head over to the reporter in the field, Sexy Biscuit, to explain how said controls and the controller works.
Everything seems to work with the controller like really well. Like you've got your turning and you've got your zooming in, zooming out. Everything just seems to work great. So we can leave, we're using the D-pad, which is nice. So as you can see, I can then press X and we're straight back into the open world. And then I can send my troops anywhere I want by selecting a point on the map. So we've got 568 troops right now. I think there's a maximum of 1,000 that we can currently have at 30 FPS, I think it currently is. It's 1,000 troops.
In the mission, you can have 1,000 agents at the same time, but you can have a larger army than that.
Well, thank you very much, Sexy Biscuit, for that. There is a maximum of 1,000 troops on the battlefield on the console versions if you want to keep it at 30 FPS. And I can't lie, that actually really impressed me, because that's better than most people. Most people that own a PC don't have the best PC in the world, so when they're playing the battles, they have to maybe turn the graphics down, or maybe turn the amount of troops or agents on the battlefield down to like 500-600, but still 1,000 looking this good. And that's not all. 4K as well. Yes, this is running what you can see in 4K on the PlayStation 5, and I'm assuming it's going to be similar on the Xbox Series X. However, is there going to be any compromises in the future? Well, we'll get onto that in just a little bit. Speaking of 4K though, it looks goddamn gorgeous. I'm sure some things have been toned down, such as anti-aliasing on said Xbox or console versions. However, it looks like most of it is pumped up to the fullest graphics that they can possibly run while keeping a steady 30. It's kind of hard to tell since this is just an iPhone recording rather than an actual screen recording of the game, but it still looks beyond what I actually expected. But we're going to go into a siege, and that's going to give us a good idea of how well this really runs. The Tailward's representatives at Gamescom explained some of the cool stuff that the new and full version of the game is going to add in. This is relevant to console and PC.
One thing that you might notice here as well when you are looking at the tooltip here is a banner effect. It was one of the things that we've been working on with the banners. I mean, on the one hand, of course, we wanted to make sure that the class simulation and so forth is satisfying. But on the other hand, we also wanted there to be a gameplay effect. So whenever a hero is equipped with a banner and assigned to a formation, that formation will benefit from that banner's effect.
Wow.
There you have it. Full banner support will be added into the full game. You've seen mods that do it aesthetically, but here we're about to see it actually work and have some utilizations. Any of your leaders or sergeants can be equipped a banner, and when they're assigned to said troop, they will give that troop on that unit buffs, which I think is a really, really cool addition. Then we head into the siege itself, playing as the Aserai, and you can tell here they haven't skimped on any of the troop formations or any of the number of agents that you can get on the battlefield, even in the console versions. It looks really impressive, and there isn't really that much of a noticeable switch between the PC and console versions, which is kind of what Bannerlord are aiming for. I mentioned this multiple times, but they're going to be updating both console and PC together, so they will be this full version, and any other patches that come in the future will come as one. It looks beautiful. There's a lot of troops. It looks pretty impressive, but let's be honest, on PC you can get 4K 60 60, or even with DLSS on, you're able to reach 4K 120, so it probably will still look better on PC at the max quality, but let's be honest, most people can't get anything close to those settings on PC, so the PS5 and the Xbox Series X versions are going to be superior to most people's PC experience. One thing I'm looking forward to seeing though is how does this run on the last version. They did mention in the Q&A that will be in a separate video that there are some limitations on the other console versions, such as the Xbox One and the PS4 versions of said game. Now, bear in mind, Sexy Biscuit is a Kingdom Come Deliverance veteran, not necessarily a Bannerlord connoisseur, so I don't think we should be too harsh with them falling off the castle walls. I mean, actually, I've been playing Mount and Blade for almost 10 years now, and I do the same pretty much every siege. I know most people here aren't for the console version of the game. They're not all that fussed about it, but it is showing off this full version that will be on PC on the 25th of October when we get that full release. But some other things, there won't be proper modding for the console version. They aren't entirely sure yet, and when I say they, I mean Tailworlds, if that's going to change in the future as well. You see, it's so challenging to actually put modding support on console. It took years for Bethesda to really work it out, and they're a massive studio, 10 times bigger than Tailworlds at this point. And there's a lot of different requirements. Xbox and PS5, they all have different requirements to put mods on them. Yet, of course, since Mount and Blade and its community is so well known for the modding and it's kind of a staple feature of the franchise, they might try and make a compromised version. Mount and Blade has always been so in-depth with its modding tools, being able to do big overhauls on PC, but that means you have to give modders a lot of permissions that sometimes consoles don't allow. So they might try and come up with a modding light version, which may be an option in the future, but I just want to state that if you are thinking of getting this on console, I probably wouldn't suggest expecting modding in the future 100%. It's still very much up in the air. But all of this is pretty exciting. We saw some great stuff at Gamescom, and I can't wait to show you guys all the stuff that I got from the interview that we did. However, what does this actually mean for the full release? I think the Mount and Blade community is about 90% focused on PC. I mean, that's just where the games grew up, and that's where they really expanded their community with modding tools and, of course, the big YouTube community around it. However, Mount and Blade Warband was pretty successful on console, and I think Bannerlord's going to be even more successful, which is going to massively affect what we can get later on for the PC versions. We get a bigger community, we get more crossover with fans, and of course, that means we get more updates and more focus from Tailworlds on this game if they see it growing and growing, and the potential for updates and expansions in the future. Bannerlord is still kind of fresh in its life cycle. It's been out for 2.5 years now, but for the game, it's still not fully released. The early access has been a bit controversial for some people. Was it really worth doing? Are they really going to stop developing at full release? No one really knows at this point in time, but I think the updates and seeing how far it's come from that really buggy launch to the point it is now, where it's surpassed Warband for any sort of content, and we're about to get full inherent modding within the multiplayer and servers as well, is exciting for the future of Mount and Blade. I cannot wait to see where this goes. But there's a lot of talk of the future of said title. Tailworlds have mentioned that even after release, they're of course going to be keeping it up to date and making sure that they're fixing anything that needs to be done. But I think it's time to hand over to the community now to see what we can create, to see how far we can push this as a game. But I guess we're going to have to see in years to come.